This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
There you go. Make sure you invest in a little polka dot. All righty. Mr. Navarro, good afternoon, sir. How are you doing?
Doing good yourself, oh. How's everything going?
Everything's good, bro. Can't complain. You know, everything's moving. Show's moving. Show's growing. So it's all good. We'll hopefully announce an addition to the family of insiders. It's growing more and more, actually. We're going to have a very interesting partner joining us. Hopefully, we'll announce it either this week or next week. We'll be able to do that, but it's going to be very good. Jose says, Big O, you just got me all depressed. Bro, I'm just telling you reality. You know, you do know that, right? You know that, right, Manny, that your kids should not buy property here, right? You know that, right? You know that we're going to be underwater for their lifetime, unfortunately.
Yeah, my girls are, we've done a little traveling with them. I think they want to live up in the mountains in Georgia or Tennessee. They like that area. That's where we go on family vacations, and they prefer that landscape.
Go west. Stay away from the coast.
Okay.
I'm just saying, bro, hurricanes are just going to – no, seriously, hurricanes are going more north now, and they're all getting hit on the coast. And so – like I've looked at Asheville, North Carolina, very nice place. It's up in the mountains. So you don't get the tornadoes. You don't get the hurricanes because it's in the western part of North Carolina. You don't get floods because you're up in the mountains. So it's like one of those kind of, you got to watch. Like I was just talking about this. You look at our map, the East Coast gets all the storms, right? The West Coast has all the fires. And they have their share of storms too. The middle part of the country gets all the tornadoes, and you have earthquakes too. You go up to the northern part of the Midwest, Minnesota, Michigan, all those areas, all they get is snow. They get no tornadoes, no earthquakes, no hurricanes, no droughts, no fires. How about that?
Better place to live.
Isn't it crazy? Like everybody moved here. The next 20 to 30 years, everybody's going to be moving out of here is what's going to end up happening.
Besides the fact that everything is so damn expensive, right?
Well, yeah, that doesn't help either. But once it's underwater, it doesn't matter how expensive it is. Right. You can't live here anymore. You got to get the hell out. I've had that conversation with my daughter, and she's like, yeah, I'm not buying anything here. Because for her lifetime, it's just not worth it. You know what I mean? Because your house will be underwater in 30, 40 years. What are you going to do? Invest in a house that, you and I, we don't have to worry about that. You know what I'm saying? Although our caskets are going to be floating in the ocean.
They will.
Think about it. I'm just saying, that's just, there's another screwed up thing that's going to be happening in Florida. There's going to be a lot of cemeteries that will be just unearthed.
Floating.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's all right. That's a weird way to start this segment. All right. So, let's get into a little Canes talk. All right, talk to me about recruiting. The man is everywhere. He's like Saguafair. He's everywhere. So what do we know on the recruiting front? Because obviously he's trying to keep current guys. And by the way, Manny, part two of that question sounds like the good players that you might have been worried about that might transfer, sounds like they're all staying, right? It looks like they all love the vibe that they've seen so far. So
yeah, I don't think he's scared anybody away as far as current players, at least not yet. We'll see what happens in the middle of spring football, right? When they have to go through the off-season program and then whatever he implements here as far as changes. There will be, I guess, a new strength coach at some point as well coming in here. And so we'll see how that shakes out. We'll see. I think anybody who leaves is probably good for the program. I don't think it's going to be bad for the program. It'll be guys that probably just don't fit in here. But as far as additions, look, Miami's got 8 commitments going into the early signing period tomorrow. And the top 6 guys that are all 4-star recruits, guys that are considered top 350 players or whatever in the country, those guys, I think, for them are all coming. The one guy who might stray is Chris Graves. He's a cornerback out of Fort Myers. He's got a good relationship with Corey Raymond, who's the new cornerbacks coach at Florida. He came over from LSU. He was there for many years, developed a lot of great cornerbacks. So I think of the 8 commitments, the one that you would care most about losing would potentially be Chris Graves. He said he's going to sign with Miami tomorrow, but we'll find out. And then as far as additions, they hosted a bunch of kids this past weekend. I talked to Ja'Cory Brown, the quarterback commitment. He's kind of my insider, when it comes to recruiting, since he talks to all the kids. Miami likes this Kevin Coleman kid. He's a 4-star receiver out of St. Louis, Missouri. And supposedly had a really good trip here. Really enjoyed his time. He was getting recruited by Cristobal at Oregon. People thought, maybe he's going to Florida State for a while. Now, all of a sudden, I think Miami's at the forefront with him. And then the one who I think Miami will definitely get tomorrow is Nigely Kelly. He's the 6'4", 240-pound edge rusher from Fort Lauderdale Dillard here locally. At the moment, Miami's only got one kid committed from Dade or Broward County. That's Wesley Besainth, the 4-star linebacker. So I think tomorrow, when you talk about, hey, what do we need to look for on early signing day, which I'm sure will be one of your questions, Nigely Kelly, I guess, is the big time kid. He's a top 100 player. I sat down with him in August and talked about his recruiting trips. He went everywhere. His mom is his best friend, and they went together everywhere on these recruiting trips. And he had a great time at Oregon. Really loved the facilities, but I think he also really likes Mario Cristobal. So for Miami, who was in his top 5 no matter what, I think getting Cristobal here strengthens their chance of getting him. So we'll see tomorrow. I mean, there'll be news, but the one thing I would tell everybody is don't expect for Miami to sign a big class now, because it's just hard. Like, he just got here last week. Like, you're not going to all of a sudden have,
of course,
15, 20 guys sign with them tomorrow. You'll probably get a guy in the transfer portal out of Alabama, this Marcus Banks cornerback, who I think played in 8 games this past season, started 1. He may be a guy that signs tomorrow with Miami. Another veteran cornerback from the SEC. You'll take that right after what you got with Tyreek Stevenson. So, but don't expect a big class, because really most of the work now, and I would say going forward, we're so used to, hey, you signed 25 guys, right? I think everything's going to remain fluid with the transfer portal.
Right, and that's the thing that I think they're going to be able to take advantage of in the very near future here. That once he figures out what recruits he's going to get, then I think he'll then attack the transfer portal and kind of fill out whatever needs he may have, which Lord knows a couple of offensive linemen would be really nice.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he went out to Texas and he talked with a couple of the guys, some that he had recruited to Oregon that were Oregon commitments. And then I know Texas put out that alert that they were going to be paying every single one of their incoming offensive linemen, I think $150,000 or something like that. So, NIL is making things interesting. But I suspect one way or another, look, kids look at rosters, man. That's what they do. They look at rosters. They see where the playing time is. They look at the relationships. Hey, how long is this coach going to be there? Did he just get there? What coordinators does he have? Do I get along with a coordinator? Because of NIL and the transfer portal, like, free agency is just going to be nuts. It's just going to be college football free agency is what it's going to be. And so while we can sit here and talk about recruiting classes and how's he doing on the recruiting trail, like, until you reach days like tomorrow and through Wednesday, that 3-day early signing period, and then knowing that there's still one in February, like, until you get past February, you really won't know how this class looks. Like, you really can't judge it until February, the end of February. And then at that point, still, you could say, well, they still could add 5 more guys through the transfer portal here at the end of spring. So it's like, to get a clear picture the way we used to, hey, this class is ranked whatever, that doesn't exist anymore in my book.
Okay. Coaching wise, what do we know? Offensive coordinator, all that good stuff. What do we know?
Well, we know that he's talking to different people. Joe Brady is not coming. I've talked about that on my podcast, the Wide Right podcast for The Athletic, a little bit in the past.
He doesn't want to recruit. He doesn't want to recruit.
He's basically just there's like I told you last week. Some of these guys are just they're playbook guys. They want to play Madden, right? They just want to design offenses and be creative, and they don't want to necessarily recruit. And so that's why some guys end up in the NFL, because they're good enough at what they do that the NFL takes them and they can be used in that way. But recruiting, the passion to do that, to go and fly all over the country, like, there's fewer guys that want to do that. There just are. So as far as the coordinator search, Ja'Cory Brown, who's the Miami commitment that I mentioned earlier, he mentioned to me yesterday Kendall Briles, who's at Arkansas, and how
Okay.
He's got a good relationship with
Son,
him, and
right?
so does Jake. Huh?
That's Art Briles' son, right?
Yeah, yeah. He's a very highly touted play caller and a guy who does well, I think, on the recruiting trail. As far as getting along with recruits. I know he has a relationship with Jake Garcia as well. He was trying to recruit Jake Garcia to his previous destination. And so, that's one name that I've heard. And to hear it from a recruit tells me that it's probably legit, that's somebody Miami is talking about. There's been other names tossed around, but, I mean, you know how this is. Like, the guys are still coaching their other teams, and if anybody's involved in the playoff, they're not going to do any of this negotiating or any of this stuff till after, they coach in their games in the playoffs. So I don't know who is on the list. I just know that it doesn't seem like anything is imminent with any coordinators. I think assistant coaches, he's evaluating those guys. I think there's a chance T-Rob, Travaris Robinson, the defensive backs coach, could be retained. He could potentially be the defensive coordinator here. Because I don't know that there's a lot of great options out there right now as far as D coordinators. Lanning going to Georgia. Leaving Georgia for Oregon, I think kind of make Schumann next in line there, right? To be the DC. That was one guy that I had heard early that maybe Mario would be interested in. So we'll see. To me, let's get past signing day, these next 3 days, and then I think we'll get more clarity on the coaching front because Mario will probably be more intensively focused on that while the team is practicing for the bowl game.
All right, so the bowl game's coming up. What are you hearing considering all the coaches that are left over on surviving all of this? And really, how much can bowl week really have an influence on you staying or leaving?
Well, I think, one thing Mario wants to do is, you can't just get rid of everybody when you come in. You got to retain some of the guys who know the roster, right? Who know the players, who know whatever private issues they're dealing with, right? And so I think guys in the recruiting department, like Edwin Pata, who's very plugged into this roster, who is one of the assistant recruiting coordinators. I think him and David Cooney have done a good job recruiting some of the local players here, building good relationships with guys like Wesley Bassant and Nigely Kelly and whatnot. I think those guys have a future at Miami. I think DeMarcus Van Dyke, whether or not he stays on as a cornerbacks coach, he is a very good recruiter. And he's plugged into the local recruiting scene. Maybe he goes back to the recruiting department. I don't know. We'll see what Mario does. I know there's a lot of coaches on staff that are just sort of anxious to figure out what are they going to do. And I think Mario ultimately wants to see these guys work. What can they pull off? What can they do here? What role can I fit them in? One thing Miami will have is more analysts on staff, right? They have more money for that. So maybe you keep guys on as analysts or in different roles. The one thing about this coaching profession is it gets tiring for these guys having to move. So if they can stay on, even if it's in a lower capacity where they're not on the field coaching, I think some of those guys might consider that. But decisions like Ed Reed, chief of staff, all that other stuff, your guess is as good as mine right now. I think Mario's very, very dialed into just recruiting right now, and we'll see in the weeks ahead how things shape up. I know that he obviously has a bigger budget than the previous guy, so I would assume he's going to try to get the best guys possible, and that could mean that very few guys from the previous staff stay.
So have you been able to figure out where the money's all coming from?
Well, a lot of it is from Miami in the coffers. That's the story that I was told, that a lot of this money was coming straight out of Miami's system, and I mentioned the money from the medical side, right? The fact that they made such big profits with UHealth.
So let me ask you this: so did Julio Frank do this because he didn't want to owe anybody anything? Because if you take Ruiz's money or Moss's money or whatever donor's money, you then have to listen to them because they gave you that money. But if you're spending your own money, you don't have to answer to anybody. You don't have to justify anything, and you can move on. And you don't have to also deal with somebody that is kind of a big fan and not really part of your, institution. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So did they do that more because the aesthetics are a lot better for you. The situation will be a lot better for you as a program, that you don't have some booster telling you what to do and what not to do with his or her money.
Right. I think certainly, and one way that you go from being just a fan or somebody who's going to give money to the school or say that you're going to give money to the school is you become a member of the board of trustees. And so in that regard, Jose Mas, he is on the actual board. Okay. And whatever money he puts in, everybody is aware of that, right? They know what he puts in.
Right.
But the other guys, the Reese family, what's his name, Marcus Lemonis, all of those guys, I mean, it's a different level of commitment, being a booster or somebody who wants to see the university do well versus being on the board of trustees. So I think, I certainly think they will not turn a check away at Miami, but I certainly think at the same time they've operated with the notion that, hey, we can't bank on any checks coming in, right? We have to operate on what we can do, because in the end, we're the ones paying the bill. So we'll happily take checks, but we're in control of this situation, or at least we're going to make it out to be that we're in control of the situation. And we know what we have in our coffers to pay for this stuff. And obviously there was a story from the Miami Herald that came out. I'm sure you saw it. My former colleague, Jay Weaver, who I worked with on many stories in the past. He's one of the best reporters in South Florida. So well connected to people in government, the FBI, etc. And Jay, had this story that came out that was basically saying, teachers are complaining because the money that UM had maybe promised them or was going to give them for 401ks, whatever it was, salary, they seem to think that it's going towards Mari in the athletic program. So is some of that money diverted from them to help pay athletic bills? Maybe. I mean, they've never done it before. So certainly had to come from somewhere, right? Somebody had to get some end of this.
All right. No, but listen, man, either way, I don't care. As long as they're spending, they're going to give themselves a chance to actually really compete at the highest level. And so on the NIL front, what are you hearing there? What are they trying to do? Because I'm sure that's an area where boosters actually could help a lot.
Right. Well, I mean, as I've mentioned before, they've had big time boosters, including the guy here locally who owns the MMA gyms, who I've spoken to in the past, and now his name's escaping me as we sit here talking. But he's given a ton of money, obviously, and I know Sportico, I think, came up with an article last week saying the NCAA is looking into this. Dan Lambert, that's right. Thank you, Sean. Dan, look, he loves the University of Miami. He's going to continue to give money to help NIL. He wasn't happy that the results ultimately didn't, end up showing on the field or even in the recruiting class, because this recruiting class right now is ranked 57th in the country, and as they go into tomorrow. So Dan wanted better results. I know Sportico said the NCAA was going to investigate, but the reality is I don't see how the NCAA could really investigate anything when there were no rules in place. It was the Wild West for the last year. So I think in the end, until rules are formally adopted and enforced, it's going to continue to be the Wild West. You're going to continue to have schools like Texas saying, hey, we'll pay our offensive lineman recruits, $50,000 or $150,000, whatever the amount was, saying, things like that. So I think in the end, NIL it's going to help if you're able to funnel it through recruiting. And I don't know that that's happened yet. I don't know that there's been enough kids who have honestly been enticed by NIL to pick a school. I know that's the ultimate fear by the NCAA, right? That you're just going to pay kids to come to your school, legally, right? Or illegally. I don't know that it's really taken root yet, because I haven't heard of many kids who said, yeah, I'm going to Ohio State because they paid me $1 million. The NIL is paying me $1 million. Or I'm going to Miami because Dan Lambert makes sure that all of us get $5,000 a month. Like I have yet to hear a kid say that to me in any conversation. So I think while it certainly could influence kids' decisions, I don't think it's the number one decision maker right now.
Is this going to trickle down to any other sport? I mean, basketball, they don't really have stars anymore. Their stars are going to the G League anyways now. They're not even staying in basketball as it is. Baseball has got its it's rules that I don't even know if you can really do anything to really help it, right? I don't think there is.
Right.
You are set the way you are in baseball with
Limited
your half
scholarships.
scholarship, yeah, and all that kind of stuff. So this is really strictly a football thing, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's female athletes that are cashing in on this, right? The really good-looking ones with big Instagram accounts, and people who are invested in some of the female sports, volleyball, soccer, softball, etc., basketball. I think they can make some money off of this, but the reality is, again, look, Quinn Ewers signed with Ohio State, right? And he made $1 million, the number one recruit in the country, the quarterback out of Texas. And he's gone. He left Ohio State. He's at Texas now. So again, it ultimately what people want NIL to do is attract recruits to their school. It could attract transfers. It could attract recruits. But the reality is, I've yet to hear anybody say, yeah, that's why I'm going to your school. Like it's in the end, it's just like the cherry on top for these kids. It's just kind of like a reward for the top ones. It's not really, I don't know, in my mind, changing the face of the game. I think the bigger influence is the transfer portal and the coaches and the shifting around and the kids just trying to make it to the pros. Wherever they feel they can make it to the pros the easiest, and whatever coach is going to play them the most, that's where they're going to school.
What has been the reaction from the players in the locker room? Have you been able to talk to any of them in their thoughts of Mario? Regarding Mario, I'm just wondering.
Yeah, I think, I haven't had a chance to speak to any of them individually. Tomorrow, Tyler Van Dyke's going to be doing something in the afternoon at the Boys and Girls Club. And I'm going to go down there and hopefully get a chance to talk to him. But he went on WSVN this weekend and talked about Mario and how much everybody in the locker room likes him. I think the general consensus is he's a straightforward guy. Ja'Curry Brown, who I mentioned earlier, the recruit who's coming in, told me the one thing he likes about Mario is he doesn't BS you. He's straight up. He's like, hey, I'm just trying to make us win here. He's not trying to like sweeten kids up with nice words and, hey, we love your talent and we can't wait to He's not that kind of guy. When he talks to these guys, it's about one thing, it's winning and getting better. And so I think for a certain kind of kid and player, that resonates because they don't want the BS. I mean, they understand, a lot of them understand what it's really all about. So I think his message is being well delivered and well received.
Yeah, I'm with you. And that I think that's athletes over the length of time that I've covered sports. 90-something% of them just want the brutal honesty. Obviously, there's a very small percentage. Those are pampered athletes that they can't handle the truth, and that's but that's a really small percentage of players. Most of the guys, college or pro, amateur or pro, they just want the straight word on where they stand or whatever. They can live with everything else. They can adjust to everything else normally. That's been my experiences too. What are you working on The Athletic, my brother, before I let you go?
Yeah, I just put out a new article with all the recruiting information that we discussed earlier. That just went up on the website today. Tonight, actually, at 4 p.m., around 4 p.m. in the afternoon, we're going to speak to Dan Radakovich again. We'll actually be able to do it in person. He's going to be introduced. So I'll be at that press conference. I'll write something off of that. Like I mentioned, Tyler Van Dyke tomorrow and signing day. So there'll be plenty to read about. And then the coordinator chase and the news with that in the weeks and days ahead. So there'll be plenty to read at The Athletic, plus a recap of everything of last week. I mean, I got a lot of good stories up there. So make sure you sign up, man, before the end of the year.
Subscribe, baby. Great deals going on and great coverage of the Canes and all the other stuff locally and nationally there at The Athletic. Manny, as always, thank you, my brother. Appreciate you. We'll catch up on Friday, my friend.
Absolutely. Take care.
You got it. Follow him on Twitter at Manny_Navarro. That's your Canes Wear Miami Hurricanes report. Hour number 3 is next.